Welcome to Hauntcore Vault. If you are ready for horror tales, you are in the right place. If you are new, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where are you from and what time you are watching. Let's begin. I had a guest staying in my home for the month of August. Let's call her M. On paper, she seemed perfect. 32 years old, a 5-star Airbnb guest. I honestly didn't have a single worry. The first week started fine. At first, I even liked her. She was out all the time, hardly ever home. But then little things started to feel off. One day she comes home, grabs a White Claw, and without even saying hi, asks me how long I've been single. I tell her 6 months, casually dating someone new, and she snaps, bitterly, saying she's been single for 4 years, and it's probably because I'm prettier and more successful than her. Then she leans in and asks me, "Do you ever just get lonely?" Like, what? We barely knew each other. Another time, she bursts into the kitchen, head still in the fridge, laughing and saying, "Man, I really want a kid." I couldn't even process it. The drinking was constant. 6 packs of White Claws every night. Conversations were impossible. She asked the same questions over and over. She was rough with the dogs I was sitting, broke things, spilled food and drinks, and somehow lost her keys within days. And she kept commenting obsessively on my new boyfriend, how lucky I was, how hot he is. At first, I rated my concern maybe a 5 out of 10. Annoying, yes, but I still felt safe. Then week 2 hit, and things went off the rails. Monday, she asks me if I have an Adderall plug. She wasn't trying to be sketchy, she says, just having trouble transferring her prescription from out of state. I told her I had a script, and she got excited. She literally picked me up and spun me around the room, begging me to sell her some. I said no. She let it go, but I started hiding my meds. Tuesday, same story. Wednesday, she breaks down crying, admitting she'd been doing coke and drinking all day. She pulls me into my guest room and does a line in front of me. Then she tries to pressure me into doing one too. I just got out of there. I couldn't deal. I couldn't confront her. Thursday, she asks for cash to buy weed. I say no. Friday, she spends the day vomiting, claiming Ozempic makes her sick. Then she asks for Adderall again, offering to repay me double. I say no. And today, she comes home, tells me not to worry about money, and invites me to some insane mansion party with celebrities an hour outside the city. I say no. I hear the telltale sounds of a credit card cutting up coke. And through all of this, I feel unsafe. I've reached my limit. I've contacted Airbnb. They're offering temporary housing. But I'm terrified to leave my home. What if she comes back? What if she retaliates? She's emotionally volatile, stronger than me, and clearly in total crisis. I invited a chaotic, dangerous stranger into my home. And now I'm left wondering, what happens next? I thought our first vacation with our 8-month-old son would be peaceful. Sunlight, warm waves, and a quiet little fishing village on the Yucatan coast. We'd booked a beachfront house with its own pool, exactly the kind of place new parents choose when they want easy. Private, safe. When we arrived, though, the pool was murky, dirt and leaves swirling under the surface. Annoying, but fixable. We asked the host to send someone, and they did. Quickly. I took it as a good sign. Our first full day was lovely. Slow. Gentle. But that night, my husband mentioned something strange. He had spotted a few dead fish floating in the ocean. I shrugged it off. We didn't know the area. Maybe it was normal. Except it wasn't. The next morning, the moment I stepped outside, I froze. The beach, our backyard, was covered. Every inch of sand, every footprint, every tide line, crawling with dead and dying sea life, fish piled on fish, eels, baby stingrays, even an octopus. a mass grave laid out on the shoreline, rotting under the rising sun. The smell hit next, thick, sour, creeping into the house. We immediately messaged the host, explaining that the ocean had become a literal dead zone and asking about leaving early. It wasn't their fault, of course, but we had a baby with us. The decay was everywhere, and the smell, God, the smell. While waiting for a response, we left to get breakfast. And this is where everything shifted from unsettling to terrifying. When we went to pay, the cash was gone. All of it. IDs and cards were untouched. My husband's wallet, which he keeps beside the bed at night, was completely intact. But the cash we'd left in purses and wallets in the living room vanished. As we compared notes, the realization sank in like ice. Someone had entered the house while we were asleep. My grandmother had been the first awake. She remembered finding the backsliding door cracked open, but assumed someone else had taken the baby out early. Later, she insisted the lock had been set the night before. All of us had locked up. We are obsessive about it. Whoever came inside had a key. My stomach dropped. A mother's panic is an animal thing, raw, instinctive. I remember my hands trembling, my thoughts spiraling. Someone had stood in the same room where my 8-month-old slept. Someone had walked by us. Someone had taken only money. This time. We immediately told the host we were leaving and wanted a refund. Contacted Airbnb, packed frantically, avoiding the back door, avoiding the windows. I couldn't get our baby out of that house fast enough. By the time Airbnb finally responded, we were already 100 miles away, shaking, exhausted, and furious. The host canceled the stay, but refused any refund. Airbnb told us we needed to file a police report. But here's the thing. This wasn't Europe or the US or even a major Mexican city. This was a small, isolated village of 5,000 people. Reporting a crime committed against tourists to local police can mean nothing happens or something worse happens. My family lived in Mexico for decades. All of us agreed filing a police report there would be a terrible idea. Airbnb didn't care. The property had security cameras, front and back, but Airbnb never told us if anyone checked them. They just closed the case. Not eligible for a refund. Investigation ongoing? Maybe. Probably not. We lost the money. We lost the vacation. But the part that haunts me, still, was standing in that living room the morning after. Cash missing, door ajar, my baby sleeping only a few feet away. Someone had been inside our home. Someone had walked into the darkness where our son slept. And I will never forget the feeling that washed over me when I realized it. We didn't leave early because the vacation was ruined. We left because something had already been in the house with us. I travel a lot for work. Accounting audits, nothing glamorous. Last November, I booked an Airbnb in upstate New York for a solo weekend before a client visit. It was a converted barn. Rustic, cozy-looking, with glowing reviews. The host seemed nice. Check-in was smooth, the place was quiet. Kind of beautiful in a get-murdered-here way, but I liked that. I planned to unwind with wine and a book. The first night was totally normal. The second night, I heard footsteps above me. Here's the thing. It was a one-story rental. My heart started pounding. I listened. Nothing. I told myself it was probably just old pipes or maybe an animal on the roof. Next morning, I decided to investigate. That's when I noticed something strange in the bedroom closet. The back panel looked off, not flush with the wall. I knocked. Hollow. Behind some hanging coats, I found a small latch. I hesitated, then opened it. Behind the panel was a narrow staircase, leading down into complete darkness. Not up, down, and the listing had never mentioned a basement. I told myself it was probably just storage. My gut was screaming otherwise, so I didn't go down. That night, sleep was impossible. Tiny creaks, almost imperceptible, but enough to make me feel like someone was moving, carefully, silently, just below me. At around 3 a.m., a distinct click came from the closet. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand like a weapon, tiptoed over. The panel was slightly ajar. I didn't open it. I just shoved the dresser in front of it and waited for daylight. Adrenaline pumping. Dead silent. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I packed and left, didn't say a word to the hosts, and here's the messed up part. A week later, I checked the Airbnb listing again. Gone. Delisted. No trace. I searched the address on Google Maps, and the photo from the listing? Not even the same building I stayed in. Different roof, different windows, everything. I haven't told anyone in real life. No one would believe me. But I'm 100% certain I wasn't alone in that house. Someone, or something, was living below me. I was staying in an Airbnb apartment in Paris while searching for a long-term room to rent in the city. It wasn't great from the start. Creaky wooden floors, a bathroom so old it felt like it belonged in another century, but I could deal with that. It was temporary. What made it nearly unbearable was the noise. The apartment next door was being gutted from 7 in the morning to almost 7 at night. Non-stop drilling, hammering, sawing, walls vibrating like the building was groaning in pain. And when the workers finally stopped, the couple upstairs would start. They had a newborn, and the ceiling might as well have been made of paper. Every early morning, I'd wake to that baby screaming for hours, echoing through the entire apartment. Exhaustion became part of the air I breathed. But none of that ended up being the worst part. Not by a long shot. One afternoon, after a long day of room hunting and interviews, I returned to the Airbnb. I walked inside, closed the door behind me, and immediately sensed something was off. My suitcase wasn't exactly where I had left it. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I opened it and felt my stomach drop. My clothes had been rifled through, shifted, disturbed. I went straight to the secret compartment where I kept extra cash, the place no one would think to check unless they were really searching. Empty. Completely empty. 300 euros gone. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. My $2,000 laptop was sitting right on the table next to the suitcase. Headphones, camera gear, other valuables, untouched. Whoever did this wasn't stealing everything. They were looking for something specific. And they knew exactly where to look. And the door had been locked when I left. And locked when I returned. Which meant someone didn't need to break in. They had a key. My hands were shaking as I called the host. I explained everything, expecting concern or at least some kind of accountability. Instead, she hit me with, "That's not possible." Then, "Maybe you misplaced the money." Then, "Are you sure you didn't spend it?" I swallowed my anger, stayed calm, and told her she could come check the apartment in the morning. I had already decided to move into a room I'd found elsewhere. When she arrived, she did the bare minimum. Looked around, checked the lock, didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge anything, didn't offer any refund. Just left. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I walked out of that place trembling with anger. At least the place I moved into afterward, those people were normal, decent. And they didn't come into my room when I wasn't home. I'm currently solo traveling through Denmark, hopping from one Airbnb to the next. And up until yesterday, everything had been perfect. Warm, cozy, hyggelik little places that made me feel safe, even traveling alone. Then I arrived at the one near Copenhagen. The moment I walked in, I could tell it wasn't like the others. Old, musty, not exactly well-kept. But it was cheap. I wasn't planning to spend much time there, and honestly, I just needed a place to sleep. The bedroom was right under the roof, so low I couldn't even stand fully upright. I brushed my teeth, climbed into bed, and that's when I saw it. A spider on the ceiling. I told myself, whatever, one spider won't eat me. Turned off the light, tried to sleep. Just as I started drifting off, I felt something crawling across my shoulder. I froze, turned the lamp back on. Another spider. On me. I killed it, sat up, heart pounding, and that's when I made the mistake of looking up. The entire ceiling, low, slanted, just inches above my face, was moving. Spiders. Dozens, maybe hundreds, small ones, bigger ones, all clustered across the wood, legs shifting, bodies twitching, some lowering themselves on threads, swaying gently in the air right above my bed. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. It felt like every one of them was about to fall on me. I scrambled out of that room so fast I nearly fell down the stairs. I slept, if you can call it sleep, on the sofa downstairs, every sound making me flinch, convinced I'd wake up with spiders crawling over my blanket. This morning, I didn't even bother eating or showering. I packed my bag, booked my next place early, and walked out the door without looking back. I've stayed in dozens of Airbnbs in my life, but this was straight out of my nightmares. It was close to 11 p.m. when my phone buzzed with a message from one of my guests. They wrote, "Is someone staying in the room next to mine?" I checked my booking calendar. Just them, no one else. So I told them, "Nope, you're the only guest tonight." But they replied almost instantly, "Then why do I hear footsteps in there? And whispering?" I tried to reassure them, told them houses make weird noises sometimes, especially old ones, but they insisted, said the footsteps were too clear, too rhythmic, like someone pacing back and forth. And the whispers, they swore it sounded like someone standing right against the wall between the rooms, speaking soft enough that the words blended together. By then, they sounded genuinely scared. Said they wouldn't stay in the house unless I came over. So I drove out there, half annoyed, half unsettled. When I arrived, the guest looked pale, like they hadn't taken a full breath since the noises started. They pointed at the door to the empty room and whispered, "It's coming from in there." I unlocked it, pushed it open. The room was dark, still, cold, in that way that feels unnatural for a house closed up all evening. Lights off, windows locked, the bed untouched, the closet empty. No signs anyone had ever stepped inside. I stood there with the guest behind me, both of us staring into an empty room that should have been silent. And as I stepped in to turn on the light, I could swear I heard the faintest scrape behind the wall. Just once. Just enough to make me stop breathing. The room was empty, but the sound didn't feel like imagination. And the guest? They refused to sleep in the house at all after that. Honestly, I don't blame them. We arrived at our Airbnb just after picking up groceries. Milk, fruit, things that needed refrigeration. So naturally, the first thing we did after punching in the door code was head straight for the kitchen. But when I opened the fridge, it was already full. Packed, actually. Leftovers, condiments, half-finished containers, things no rental should ever have. I remember standing there, groceries in my arms, confused. Then I looked around the kitchen, and the confusion turned into something colder. The counters had open packages, spices, someone's personal mugs. There were keys, mail, the folded jacket draped over a chair. It looked exactly like someone lived there. Not like a messy Airbnb, like a home. A home we had just walked straight into. I called out, half expecting someone to answer from the next room. No response. We stepped down the hall, slowly, like intruders, which at that moment is exactly how it felt. Every doorway we passed made my heart beat harder. It felt like we were seconds away from someone stepping out and asking what the hell we were doing in their house. And then it hit us. If someone was living here, they were about to come home to total strangers standing in their kitchen. We hurried back to the car, shut the doors, locked them, and just sat there, waiting for police lights that luckily never came. We called the rental company in a panic. They were calm, too calm. They said the owner had assured them the place would be cleaned out beforehand. It obviously hadn't been. Their solution? Just push things aside. That was the first sign that something was off. Still needing to unpack, we went back inside and carefully started moving things into a large storage closet. That's when we found them. Bottles of medication. Not vitamins, not aspirin. Cancer medications. Some half-used, labeled with a man's name we didn't recognize. And then paperwork. Medical forms. Hospital letters. All pointing to the same thing. The owner of the home had been receiving treatment for stage 4 cancer. More documents turned up as we sifted through the belongings, and slowly a picture formed, one the rental company hadn't told us, and maybe didn't even know. We pieced together what happened. The owner had died, not long ago, and from the dates and details we found, it looked like his children had arranged to have his body transported north to be buried with his wife. They must have been grieving, overwhelmed, maybe even far away. And it seemed they never came back to clear out his home. They just listed it. A house full of someone's life. His medicines, his clothes, his food, turned into a vacation rental overnight. And we, unknowingly, walked straight into a stranger's life that had only recently ended. I've stayed in rentals before, some messy, some strange, but nothing like this, because this one didn't feel abandoned. It felt like someone had just stepped out and might come back at any moment. I didn't think anything was wrong at first. It was supposed to be a simple girls' trip, 4 of us, all 22, cramped luggage, too many snacks, and an Airbnb just outside the city center. When we arrived, our host, this older guy, mid-30s maybe, met us outside. He was overly friendly, but I told myself he was just trying to earn a 5-star review. He gave us a tour of the place, then the neighborhood. He hovered a little too close, talked a little too long, but I brushed it off. We were tired. I just wanted to put my bags down and sleep. The next morning, we woke up to a massive breakfast waiting on the kitchen table. I mean, who even does that? Plates stacked with food, like he'd cooked for a family of 10. I remember laughing about it with the girls, calling him generous. But in the back of my mind, I wondered when he'd had time to come in and set everything up. That night, he texted me. Not the group, me. Just checking in. Hope you girls are doing all right, happy face. Innocent enough. Kind of weird, but fine. 2 days into the trip, my phone buzzed again. I opened the message without thinking. What I read didn't make sense at first. He asked if I was the shibari bunny type. I stared at the screen confused. I didn't even know what that meant. Did he think he meant something else? Was it a typo? I Googled it, and when the images loaded, my stomach turned cold. My fingers suddenly felt too big for my phone. My vision tightened, and for a few seconds all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. I felt watched. I swear, as I stood there in that dim Airbnb room, I could feel eyes on the back of my neck, like someone was standing just behind me, breathing shallowly, silently waiting for me to turn around. I snapped the door lock shut so fast it echoed. I showed the girls the messages. They all agreed it was creepy, super creepy, really weird, WTF creepy, but then immediately went into this weird optimism mode. He's harmless. He won't actually do anything. There are 4 of us. Stop ruining the vibe. But I couldn't shake it. My body would not relax. My brain screamed that something was wrong. I knew if I stayed, I wouldn't sleep. So I packed my bag. One friend tried to talk me out of it. Another rolled her eyes. Only one said she understood. I walked 15 minutes in the dark to a cheap hotel, constantly checking over my shoulder, imagining footsteps behind me that never fully sounded, shadows moving in windows that could have been curtains or could have been someone watching. I didn't feel safe until I deadbolted the hotel room door and shoved a chair under the handle. From the hotel bed, I told my dad what happened. Maybe I shouldn't have, because the fury in his voice scared me almost as much as the host did. I never went back to that Airbnb, and even after I left, knowing he didn't have my new address, knowing I was behind a locked door, I still woke up throughout the night, every few hours, with this sinking sensation like someone was standing right outside my room, waiting, listening, wondering why his shibari bunny suddenly ran.